Space Marine 2.
Space Marine!
A game most 40k fans are hyped for. And they're so hyped they don't even know what they're hyped for anymore. You know, I was going to plan to do Space Marine 2 review much later, like in a year or two, when the game goes on sale, which that would look much more accurate than to the price that we have now.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
So, instead, I got a present from my brother for my birthday, so free gift? Fuck it, we balling? Let's have a look at a Space Marine 2. Overall review before I go into more detail. This shouldn't be called Space Marine. This should have been called Primaris Marine, because first of all, Primaris Marines are way more different than their previous edition, Space Marines. And yeah, you can still call them Adeptus Astartes, but they are not Space Marines. And we know why they're not called like Space Marine Mark Primaris instead.
Money!
For once, this is a fully built game to a certain extent, but it doesn't reflect well price-wise. Story is shit, characters is shit, the dialogue is shit.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Which makes Space Marine story look a little bit more better while being simple.
The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
The gameplay in Space Marine 2 is much more fluid and has more variety and really enjoyable. Where in Space Marine 1, combat was limited of what you can do, and it was like training a League of Legends player how to only right-click when melee, and it was repetitive and boring. Music? Time to add another bingo to this card since music in 40k is satisfactory, so what else can I ask for? Visually, it's a no-brainer. Just look at it. Personally, I think Spacehawk Deathwing does a much better job visually when we talk about 40k's grimdark, but visually, stunning nevertheless. So, there are some concerning problems. When you first launch, for some reason, I thought this is a Steam game, and then he puts you into Epic Games. So, okay then. Then the one thing that I noticed and know the PvP will crash like after a couple months of playing it is anti-cheat. Well, specifically, easy anti-cheat. From experience and knowing well that games that have easy anti-cheat doesn't tend to do much overall when it comes to hackers and cheaters. What? Connect to your profile? Cringe. Right, time to do the campaign and immediately go for the hardest difficulty known to man solo. As much as I enjoy to play a proper Space Marine in the tutorial, but from there it will just go downhill after that. When that Space Marine took the helmet off in the dumbest way possible, I knew we were going to have this type of cinematic shit more than once that being helmetless. You can do campaign offline, but in some way it tries to put you always online and just trying to join servers, which I'm not a fan of. Then again, the game is designed as a 3-man co-op than a single player. There are some areas that has a reference from the original Space Marine, some do a pretty decent job, and while the rest are just more shoehorned into the story for the sake of fan service, and it just makes no sense.
The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
The story overall does not make sense at all. And this is not like, oh, I'm gonna have to read 52 books of Horus Heresy plus additional books to understand the fucking lore in the game. From start to finish, there are things that make sense from the lore, but it is not implemented well here. They either just forgot about it or they just didn't care in order to make the plot of the story going. A really good example is the Shadow of the Warp. Where is it? It's never mentioned in the whole game until you go to the Astro Telepathica ones.
In addition to the shadow cast in the warp by the Tyranids.
Huh? And meanwhile, Chaos is just all over the place like it was planned all along from the start. Fighting Tyranids and all that. Like, where's the Shadow of the Warp?
Where are they?
Think about this. Tyranids are not just mindless bugs go in and eat planets. They have a hive mind, so there's one type of Tyranid controlling all. They understand what they're doing, and the first thing they do, always, when they invade to a planet, is with their greatest weapon, the Shadow of the Warp. Because if you cut communications from the planets, then no one is saving them. Yeah, I could give it a little pass for the PC in the tutorial at the start, maybe just sending a last message before they get decimated at the start, but it still doesn't make sense for reinforcements to come that quickly, especially if you're running something as big as a Primaris chapter.
Got another joke? What have British people in a statue got in common? We literally never fucking move! Ever!
What would make more sense is those planets being devoured, and you had to predict what is the next planet that would be. Similar how they did in the first Tyranid War in lore.
The Ultramarines always triumph! How about you, foul Xeno scum? Fine then. Call it a draw!
So already broke the whole story with that, because if there was a Shadow of the Warp while cutting all types of communications, then there will be no chaos at all. And if there was, they will be super weak. Just from that, the story is already falling apart. Also, I think most people forgot what happened to the virus bomb from the tutorial, because it was never mentioned ever again and it seemed it did nothing at all. So the mission was just redundant. The only way for the Chaos story to even work in the first place, if they were like in a different planet away from the Tyranids, or else this just wouldn't work. Let's pretend that the Shadow of the Warp doesn't exist for some reason.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
So, the main villain of the story is Imura. We are explained at the end of the game during the boss battle, and he wanted to lure Kalgar in to get his grudge for what he did 200 years ago. Okay, that seems reasonable, but there's two problems. At the end of the Tyranid story, Titus wants to kill the Hive Tyrant and then send a communication to the Chapter Master, which, for one, how the fuck are you gonna take down a Hive Tyrant with just 2 squads of Marines?
We kill it. We break the synaptic connection. They'd scatter like rats.
That's not how the Force works.
And even if you somehow pull it off, he's not the only synaptic link for Tyranids, and Kalgar knows that from experience.
Fine then. Call it a draw!
Also, it doesn't make sense how Kalgar arrived to save the day at the end of the campaign, because the Astro-Telepathica person who was an imposter, so Imura, and most likely the message didn't go through. So, how did the message go through in the first place? Well, I got an answer for you. It's called poor writing.
Yes!
Maybe as a leeway, Imura intentionally uses psychic powers to lure him in, but still, that wasn't from Titus. That was from Imura.
I received your message. Brief me.
Do you not see the plan in my guy? And also, if this was smartly done, Imura could have just tried to lure Kalgar by separating him from his chapter. You know, like divide and conquer, so that falls flat to its feet. The positive with Imura, he's not that insufferable like Nemiroth from the original Space Marine game. He has a bit more passion, his voice acting at least makes him a reasonable villain. Plus, unlike Nemiroth, Imura has an actual boss fight, and it's done decently well. But that's just me being generous, because other than that, story-wise with him, he's just quite bland. Now, it's obvious when it came to the story, it's all about Titus being Primaris Marine, and the stuff of his past is coming back to him. Like, what the fuck is this, Kratos from 2018?
But I am your monster no longer.
We soon find out the crystal destroyed in the original Space Marine game, the Mechanicus somehow had possession of the crystal, and then just assembled them together, somehow, in order to create a weapon and use that against Chaos and the Warp Rift. I'm sorry, did they forget what happened at Graia?
Firing now.
Not only that, when they use the crystal, they are doing the exact same thing, just in a different game. Yeah, copy my homework, bud, but make it less obvious. To be fair, there were some stuff that I'd give it a pass, like, you know, a Dreadnought throwing a rock on a Helldrake.
Where are the traitors?
They are everywhere.
Or just throwing an entire ship into a crystal, which was a little funny and silly, but still, even with that, it doesn't save it from the shit story. The ending felt like this is some happy ever after ending. The brothers getting together, and there you have it. And then they tried to be clever and show, like, in the end, the chaplain who's joining Titus is Leandros all along. Yeah. No shit. It wasn't like it was obvious from the start. Who else is alive after the first game?
The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
Characters with a dialogue with the involvement in the story doesn't make it even better. Because from the start, first off, the Primaris Marines shouldn't be standing around in the ship and having a casual conversation like it's nothing.
Brother, Lieutenant. I am merely surprised by this development. I shall be glad to have a commander of such experience.
We are joined by Lieutenant Titus.
Welcome, brother. We are yours to command.
Because when I need a job done, I get someone with a job to do that job!
They should be in the training halls. They should be playing simulation fights physically and mentally to challenge themselves until the actual fight comes in. The chaplain shouldn't be so talky and keep giving a slap on the wrist like it's like,
Should it be discovered, there would be questions.
Huh?
chaplains are super strict and very mean. Even in a glimpse of questioning or any action that you make of heresy, your ass will be toasted. Anywhere and anytime, and not being some principal from high school.
I am now the Alpha.
Also, why do they have different accents?
Straight with you, Titus. I have my reservations about your reinstatement.
Captain, you wish to see me?
Should it be discovered, there would be questions.
Bless the Emperor. It's good to see you.
Where's your squad?
We need to get across the bridge.
I'm sorry, you're telling me. These guys, who are taken when they were children and were indoctrinated to be bred for war, and then somehow they have different accents? You serious? These primaries, who are bred to be indoctrinated and psycho-conditioned for war, plus fighting amongst their brothers for centuries or a good amount of years, from the start, they should have the same accent. Then again, there's a reason behind that, and I know some people say, well, there's no woke in this game. I'm sorry. Here's example number 1. Here's example number 2. Sarkana, the tough bitch of Lady of Mams.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
And here you have diverse Space Marines. Here's some more diverse Space Marines. Let me extend it a little more. Here's some more diverse Space Marines that you could use in PvP and PVE, because why not? And you can't even customize the character's human features either. Not woke, my ass. Let me ask you a question. If you ever been in the military by any chance, what happens if you talk back to superiors or not follow their orders?
Or I will gouge out your eyeballs and skull fuck you!
Now, do that with Primaris Marines or Space Marines, there is no second chances. They will straight up kill you so they can use you as an example of why you don't disobey your superiors. Now, saying that, these two Marines, they seem to not know what military command is.
I am merely surprised by this development.
I shall be glad to have a commander of such experience.
Bless the Emperor. It's good to see you.
Where's your squad? Sir, you served in the Death Watch.
Yes.
It's a privilege to serve with you.
It's constant gossiping, it's all emotional.
Lieutenant!
Gadriel, I am no heretic. I am no heretic. An accusation of heresy.
Her voice was puppeted by her.
The lieutenant will answer.
Check the perimeter. Yes, brother.
Plus, for some reason, they don't know how to fight against Tyranids, asking Titus like it's their teacher.
You're familiar with this foe, brother? I am. How do the Tyranids compare to other Xenos?
They are an unrelenting plague, but they are cunning. The controlling influence of their hive mind makes them act as one.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
They are Marines. They don't need to question. They should be already briefed on what's going to happen. They don't need emotional gossiping. They are cold, calculating Primaris Marines or Space Marines, whatever it is. That all they are is they are bred from childhood to be indoctrinated and psycho-conditioned for war. They know how to fight.
It's a simple fucking concept.
If it was a Space Marine or a Primaris Marine, I was expecting something like this. Not this.
Check the perimeter. Yes, brother.
Explain yourself.
Need I justify my hatred?
You need justify your recklessness.
Now, speaking about Primaris Marines that shouldn't be emotional, why the fuck is Luz emotional?
He's dead.
Dead.
You are to replace him.
Stop fucking crying, bitch! Where? I don't wanna fucking hear it!
A good example is in the Mechanicus, the game, because they despise having an emotion because it's a way of weakness. And remember, from the intro of that game,
from the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me.
Because they want to remove all of their humanity as much as possible so they can be as much as possible to be a machine. It's been a thing since 8th edition.
Brother, what's that, brother?
There are these characters who know Titus, but we as an audience aren't explained well who they are, other than they just exist.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
We know Galio's a tech priest, Imura, who is the villain,
I am now the Alpha.
and Manius Kalgar. For some reason, Titus was his favorite and he wanted him back to the chapter, but that is not even mentioned from the start of Space Marine 2 or in the original, which is Space Marine. Plus, Titus was a black shield in the Death Watch at the start, so any records of him wouldn't be there to track in the first place, which contradicts of the intro of how they came over, saw that they recognized this guy as Titus, and then became a Primaris Marine and they want them back in the chapter. Also, he was stated as dead from Graia at the end of Space Marine 1, so how would Manius Kalgar know that he lives in the first place?
Captain Titus was killed on the Forge world of Graia over a century ago. He died holding the power source in his hands.
We have to remember, the part that made Titus very interesting in Space Marine 1 was Titus having this mystery that he had of the resistance of the warp. And at the end of the story of Space Marine 1, it was indicated we will find out how Titus somehow obtained to be resistant to the warp.
Stuff of chaos. Heresy.
It's lightly mentioned that he has a connection to the warp, but then again, no shit, Sherlock. It's not like every human is connected to the warp unless you're like a blank. In Space Marine 2, it was implied a little, but mostly it was about like of him being accused of heresy, but we never found out of what Titus' resistance to the warp or whatever the whole shenanigans happened in Space Marine 1.
What were you accused of?
Corruption.
Personally, I think they just threw that story out of the window and just didn't care. Like, who pays attention to the story when you have a big power of a Marine with brain rot memes and just go to town and thinking you're just so masculine just because you have a big hammer and you just must smash? Let me be fair where fair is due. Gameplay-wise, when fighting against enemies, it does give that fuck yeah energy. And in comparison, when it comes to controls, there isn't much different other than you can do the parry system and have some additional ways of execution added, and the combat is much more fluid. It's not the best, but it's refreshing. I did appreciate they have photo mode, so if you want to make some goofy thumbnails, then go for it. By the way, I did this mistake once. If you were at the end of the chapter in the campaign, and you suddenly move to a different mode, all your progression that you had is lost. And then you have to do that chapter all over again, from start to finish. Thankfully, I only did that once, but it sucks because that means as well in the campaign they don't have a certain checkpoint in the campaign.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Just like in the first game, there was no cover at all, and it was even worse than the first game, because it makes it really difficult even in the Angels of Death difficulty, because there was a lot of ranged enemies, and trying to find cover is sometimes near to impossible. So you have to dodge the enemy's shots and pray they don't hit you. Well, if they're not like fucking heat seeks like these fucking Terminators and Neurogons. Even worse, some enemies are able to stun you. So if you get stunned even once, get ready for your health to get decimated real quick. And oh, don't worry, man. You don't have that much medic packs that often, so good luck surviving the right cello in high difficulty. There was one weird thing they did. It seemed they kind of swapped from the original, where if you execute, you gain health, but you will get damage for it and die from the enemies. But if you use the ultimate, you become invincible for a short period and regain some health. But instead, what they've done in this game is your ultimate is just regenerate health and be damage resistant, which sometimes doesn't even work. And you are invincible when you're doing your executions, but you will only regain shield. You can regain health by doing damage, but that doesn't mean much when on the Angels of Death difficulty, as your health will be gone in seconds. Loading screen is similar, like Darktide. Well, at least one of them is a fully built game at launch. Promos look like they came out of the factory squeaky clean and oddly glossy. Like what? There's no veterans around? Like where's my rough armor that looks like they've been fought 1,000 battles then look like a stormtrooper from Star Wars? In the tutorial, there were a variety of pickups and it looks promising because what I mentioned in the previous video is that you just go, pick it up, or upgrade, and now you have it. Instead of either pick it up from enemies' hands or a dead body of a Marine, which will make more sense, or even lucky, a Space Marine squad comes in and gives you additional supplies. But wait, there's a lucky weapon for you to try. It was good until my hope shattered.
Yes! 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 No! 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 Fuck! Shit!
Because there were weapons all around the corner and drop-pod points, you know, those fucking drop pods that are in the original Space Marine, but this time it has, instead of having one weapon, they have more weapons. And now they just have a whole weapon variety, so ammo and even class customization that you do in before going for a mission, it's just pointless. For the Blood of Tyranids, it would have made sense if they had any other color than red. It just gives that better visual indicator that there are aliens. Also, those aliens don't bleed that much. Easy there, they're not blood bags. Plus, I don't know why these Chaos Spawns have red blood when they are from the warp. I know they did the Rubric Marines well because they're all dust, but these Chaos Spawns having blood? At least the original game, Space Marine 1, had a better idea when killing enemies. So they just evaporate instead of just bleeding. The Primaris and Space Marines from the start, they don't sound heavy.
Kill them all! When did humans get so big?
Like, they should have a weight of a tank with a bit much more boom with every step like in the original game. This one just sounds a little bit lighter. Even some weapons are wrong, so if I had to stick with the old codexes and 8th and 9th edition, the bolt rounds are much larger than what they depict in the game, and the sound should be much more heavier, because you are not shooting a 50 caliber round, you are shooting something that is 3 times or 4 times that size. Music in comparison from Space Marine 1 and Space Marine 2? At least the songs here are much more serious than the 80s heroic version like in the original. Things are a little more dire, the tone is a bit more grim, and giving that strong Space Marine feel to it, which then enhances the experience. By the way, I chose my characters to have the helmet on in the settings. So, can I have at least not have a helmetless cutscene every single time?
Mechanicus fools.
See you. Where's your squad? Gone.
I have a message from Marnius Calgar.
Then again, it is to show how diverse they are, so woke checklist ticks.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
At least the original, there are some vehicle scenes, Sure, not controlling them directly, but you at least were a part of it, and it was short. Plus, they were the most memorable things that you did in the campaign. So, in this campaign, in Space Marine 2, there were no vehicle scenes you were riding on, unless you want to count the Dreadnought, but you ain't doing much with it, so compare that to shooting a heavy bolter in a train, in an aircraft, and also, you were on a massive Titan, so there was a little bit more than just that.
Where are the traitors?
They are everywhere.
In the end, this game is more or less a mid-game as I predicted.
That I love. I absolutely love.
But as a 40k game, oh boy, you know, it's glorious!
Yes! Yes! Yes!
This video is mainly focused on the campaign and the terrible story writing. It has some woke stuff in the game, but it's not that massive to the point that it's right in your face. But it's there regardless. Let's not pretend that this is not woke, like come on now, let's not be silly. For the PvE and the PvP, I'll extend that to another video. It might be uploaded hours after this video comes out or days after, since I'm just an ordinary guy that does much more than YouTube. Last thing, as I don't do this enough. If you want more updates from me on YouTube, then they will be on the community page. And I have a Discord channel, so if you want to come over and say hi, or just want to talk about 40k, or say how my Discord channel is better than Gamza's channel. Who is Gamza, you say? Well, you know, some washed up 40k player and never won a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament and pretends that he is a champion, and now instead of talking shit about 40k, he's a VTuber now with his exact image and does reaction streams. Yeah, I know, kinda cringe, right? Gamza, if Gamza just watches this, he would just be like, "Hey! I don't say that! What are you..."
Nellop, you better apologize to me now before I'm gonna burn your ass.
Anyways, for legal reasons, that is a joke.
Guys, should I cancel Nellop? This is more than once you've stolen my stuff.
I am no heretic.
He's not even giving me credit. I think I should ban him.
And
Copyright strike him? Okay, I'll do it after this.
Overall, that'll be it. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye, my brothers, and take care.